Your next challenge in the 7 Caillou series is called Simple Interest and Compound Interest. Simple interest on a loan is calculated by simply taking the initial amount, that is the principal, which they call P, and multiplying it by a rate of interest R and the number of time periods N. And you can see those represented as the method parameters. Compound interest, on the other hand, is calculated by adding the interest after each time period to the amount owed, then calculating the next interest payment based on the principal plus the interest from all previous periods. Given a principal, interest rate, and a number of periods n, return an array which contains 2 integer values, the total owed under simple interest and the total owed under compound interest. The notes say to round all answers to the nearest integer. Principal will always be an integer between 0 and just under 10,000. The interest rate will be a decimal between 0 and 1, and the number of time periods will be an integer between 0 and 50. And then they have some examples there. Feel free to work those out if you'd like. We'll talk about how to do that as I go into the solution, but they tell you basically in the writing here how you can make each of those calculations. So you know what to do. This is your time to shine. Pause the video and have a go. Come on back when you're ready. So, you know what? There's no need to be so cryptic with our variable names. So before we even get started, I'm just going to name these a little better. Let's call them interest rate, periods. Those are a little more descriptive to me. So, like I was saying, this will come down to your ability to translate written instructions into mathematical equations, right? Being able to solve word problems. So, we will calculate a simple interest, we'll calculate a compound interest, and then we'll build a new array, size 2, and fulfill the contract by returning this integer array with just the 2 values. So let's start with the easy one. Let's do simple. And simple. And to do this, what do? It says it's calculated by simply taking the initial amount, which is the principal, and multiplying it by a rate of interest. Okay, that's pretty straightforward, right? Multiply the interest rate and the number of time periods. It basically told us multiply all 3 of these out, and that's pretty straightforward. The thing that's going on here, though, that you may notice is that we've got a double in here, so this multiplication isn't necessarily going to come out. It's going to come out as a double value, and we need to fit it into an integer to fulfill the contract here, right? They want it as a rounded integer. So let's do that. Let's suppose we could go to math round. That should take a double if memory serves us right. We've used this before. And then I'll try just using a typical cast like this, so we'll see if that does the job for us. Part 2, right, is that we need to calculate the compound interest. So let's do that next. For the compound, I'm going to sort of make a variable to store the total owed at any time, and we'll just keep adding to it. We'll cycle over the number of payment periods, and then we'll calculate how much more should be added to our total owed each time, and hopefully that becomes clear as we do it. So let's make this as a double to start, because as you can imagine, as we go through each round again, there's this interest rate's a double. It's likely not going to come out as a perfect integer, and when you do multiplication between integers and doubles mixed together, the result's going to be a double. So that's why I'm choosing to call mine a double. It's going to have some non-integral value. It's going to have decimal, floating point, and I'll leave it in that double form through all of the calculating so we don't lose precision, and then only at the very end will I attempt to round this number. So to start, right, you would start with just the primary, right, to figure out the total owed. And then you could think of it as the number of periods. Let's say that's monthly. If that helps you think about it, you make a payment every month. We'll go over each month and calculate how much to add to that total that we owe. So, but initialize to the primary, or I'm sorry, not primary, principal. Initialize it to the principal to start. Then we can loop, and I don't know why I have a space there. Okay, so while num periods is greater than 0, right? There are 5 periods. And then we know when you first set up these while loops, right, you gotta be careful because you don't wanna create an infinite loop. You should already be aware that, hey, I'm going to have to do something with this number of periods, otherwise it'll never change and the condition will be the same as it is every time. It'll never progress, in other words. So I'm just out of the blue, you know, get that out of the way so I don't forget about it, right? It's a common thing I like to do with these while loops. You know, each round we're gonna take one off as we process it, right? So there, that's out of the way. So the next part is to figure out how much more to add to our compound total, right? And so we're gonna have to say compound plus equals, right? Each time through the loop, we're gonna be adding to whatever the current value of this is. It starts out as the principal, but we're gonna start factoring in an interest rate on the principal, and that's gonna get added back to the compound. And then you can see that because you're adding to it, that compound amount owed is going to grow a little bit, or maybe a lot, depending on the interest rate. And so each time it's getting bigger and bigger. So, okay, so what do you think? Well, read your instructions. Is calculated by adding the interest after each time period to the amount owed. So you'll take the current amount owed times the interest rate. That's kind of like what we did before, how we started the principal times the interest rate. You're doing the same thing here. The only difference is that compound is growing, right? I think there's a famous quote by Einstein where he says compound interest is the greatest force in the world, or something like that. It's pretty funny. So compound, yeah, the amount, you're multiplying it by the interest rate and you're adding that back in. So the compound got increased. The next time around, the compound's higher. The interest rate's the same, but the compound total amount owed is getting higher each time. And so you do that for however many number of periods you have. When you're done, you should have your total amount owed. So again, we'll round the value, convert it back to an integer, and they wanted us to return an integer array, right? So I'll use this syntax here to say simple. And then we could do another step, but I'll just do it all in place here. We'll say math round compound, but remember math round returns a double. So like we did at the top, let's make sure it's an integer value. And don't forget, in programming C#, you gotta have a semicolon at the end. That's like the period of your sentence, right? So we'll go ahead and test this to make sure I did it right. Okay, we got an error source. What does this mean, right? Go to line 14, space 12. Line 14, what do we do? Return. Oh, sure, I see it. Oops, sorry. Where was I? There we go, sorry about that. I see it. If you want to pause the video, go ahead. Otherwise, we'll put it in new, right? We're creating a new array. We're allocating space here and constructing this integer array. So That should be happier. Okay. The name math does not exist in the current context. And if I had gone to the documentation, which maybe you already did, the math library should be coming from the system namespace. And you can look that up. I'll leave that as an exercise to you if you'd like, if you don't believe me on that. But remember, when you go to the doc page, it'll say right at the top which library it's from, whatever class you're looking at. So I'll try that. Okay, we got a fail. Expected 110, 110, but got, oh yeah, I see what I did. So cool. Maybe you caught this early on, right? So with the simple, we can see, right? Remember, the simple value comes first, the compound comes second, and we matched right on 110 to 110, right? But look at our simple. They're expecting 110 and we returned 10. And so that's a clue. You can see that they instructed us to do the total owed, right? And this isn't a total. This is calculating just the interest rate, the amount coming from that. And so we have to add it to the base principal itself. So let's do that. Let's go principal, right? You got your starting balance, and then you're going to add that to this whole bit. And if you're paranoid and you want to put parentheses around the part that I have highlighted, you can. It's not necessary, because if you know your order of operations, you know that it'll fire off the multiplications first. So these three will all be multiplied like we want them to. And then finally add it onto the starting balance, right? That's the part that I missed. That's where you get the total from. You know, you got that total amount, you got the amount that you owe from interest, right? This is the base amount. You borrowed $10,000 for your car or whatever, and then you were calculating the interest on that. And of course, you got to pay the principal too. You can't just pay the interest. You got to pay the whole loan, right? So yeah, I didn't do a total there. Hopefully you didn't make that mistake. Good on you. We're thinking. Computer's really thinking. Error was caused due to an issue processing the web requests, not because of an issue executing your code. So I've seen these on occasion. I'll give it a minute to think. I know it's the weekend, so maybe Code Wars is just hanging out hot on a nice hot day, at least where I'm at, you know, cooking out or something. Hopefully they got pinged and they're back. Let's try it. There we go. It's our favorite color, green. So we don't claim victory until we hit the attempt. I'm a little scared because the buttons are grayed out, but we'll try it. See if we get any kind of response. Come on, Bessie. I don't know if I need to refresh this thing. Or maybe we just have so many people, so many ninjas in the dojo, the servers can't handle it. That's a nice thought, right? All right, I'm gonna hit this again. If it doesn't work, I'm gonna copy just so I don't lose my work here. Oh, let's help my OCD out a little bit too there. Control A, Control C. Now if it loses everything, we'll just paste it back in. So I'm going to refresh this, see if we... Okay, got our buttons back, that's good. So Control A to select all, Control V to paste over it. Looks like it got everything we did. Let's hit the attempt now. There we go, and we are clear for submission. Looks good. Make sure I didn't leave any comments or anything in there. This looks okay to submit to me. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then you can do the same, collect your kata points, your honor points, whatever they call that, and check through other solutions as you like. See if there's anything useful in there for you. Otherwise, you always know you can hit me up with questions. So do that if you'd like. Otherwise, I will see you in another challenge. Thanks for watching.